Hello and welcome. Today, I'll be talking about The Wasteland, George Miller's possibly final Mad Max project. Now, I just wanted to make this quick update video because I found out a whole lot about this and I wanted to share the news with you. So mind you, there's going to be a bunch of spoilers in this video. If you don't want to hear it, click away. If you want to stick around, you have been warned. So, what is The Wasteland about? Well, officially, what we know from George is that it's a story about a year of Max's life leading up to Fury Road, and apparently it's very bleak.
We wrote what happened in the year before Fury Road for Max as well.
But I needed to find out more, so I reached out to some and basically I asked them, do you know what George Miller's working on right now? And they told me, and get this, he's working on a Mad Max show, which is about Max building himself a new interceptor by doing jobs for people in the Wasteland in exchange for car parts. Chumbucket is in it, Scrotus is in it, and Hope and Glory are in it too.
There was a little story about Max rescuing a mother and her child from a buzzard.
Well, that's part of the story that we wanted to tell. But again, it's much more complicated than that. It's not just the two of them.
And all those people that are haunting Max in Fury Road, well, they're from the Wasteland. They are from that story.
If you watch Fury Road, you see he has flashbacks.
Yeah.
And those flashbacks have a narrative that we had to sort of understand.
And they brought in Sean Grant from Nitram to work on the script, and apparently George Miller is not going to direct it. So it made me think this whole plot of the Wasteland is like, it is literally like the 2015 game. And turns out that there's a really good reason for that. And that's because that game is actually based on The Wasteland, the game that never came out. Back in 2008 to 2010, George Miller was working with Cory Barlog on The Wasteland game, and they came up with characters of Chumbucket for it. And Cory Barlog, he created Scabrous Scrotus for the game. Originally, he was called Scab, and then George Miller came in and he added the Scrotus part. So it's kind of cool to think that those two characters that we know from Furiosa, Chumbucket and Scrotus, that they were actually invented for the Wasteland game that never came out. And even in the film, Max's Interceptor, it doesn't have the rear spoiler because it was supposed to be a collectible item in the game that they were making, about Max building himself a new car. But that game was canceled. So what happened then was that Warner Brothers and Avalanche, they showed up and they picked up the pieces of that project and they built their own Mad Max game based on it. Basically, the game that came out is built on the skeleton of The Wasteland, the game that George Miller and Cory Barlog were working on. But they were trying to make it their own, so they started changing things in the plot. For example, Max was not rebuilding his Interceptor in it. Instead, he was working on the magnum opus, and they changed a whole lot of other things, and George Miller was just standing there looking at it like, what are you doing to my story? It became disconnected from Fury Road, although it kind of looks canonical. It has all those elements in it still. So George Miller was like, nah, that's not good. I don't want my name on it. That's why his name is not in the credits of the game at all, and he doesn't consider it canonical, and he's right.
It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. It wasn't in our hands. We gave all our material to a company to do it. But I'm one of those people that I'd rather not do something unless you can do it at the highest level, or at least try to make it a high level.
The fact of the matter is that this game that came out, the 2015 Mad Max game, that's as close to the Wasteland as we've ever been. And that's what makes this game so fascinating. I mean, if you look deeper into it, you're probably going to find some lore that's from the Wasteland. So what happened with George Miller's original idea to turn that story into a game? Well, after he could not turn it into a game, he turned that story of the Wasteland into a 200-page novella. Actually, Nicola Thuris, he wrote that. And then that novella became adapted into a movie script that Tom Hardy signed onto when he signed onto Fury Road. And now, the same idea is being turned into a Mad Max series. But you see, here's the thing. What if I told you that this idea for a Mad Max series is not new at all? In fact, that George Miller wanted to make it since 1987. Back in 1987, George Miller was trying to make a TV show, a Mad Max TV show about Max building himself a new car.
Back in the 80s after Thunderdome, George was actually considering doing a television series about Max, where he was actually literally going out each week in an episode, doing jobs for people in order to actually get bits of the Interceptor back to be able to rebuild the vehicle.
And it was supposed to star John Blake as Max. But that project fell through because John Blake had an accident, right? So in 1996, he wanted to make a Mad Max TV show again. That's when he got the rights to Mad Max back. And Warner Brothers, they wanted to fill in their TV spots with some sci-fi alongside Babylon 5. So they figured, why not just ask George to make a Mad Max TV show? And he could have his own line of toys, for example. But George was not interested in making anything Mad Max at all because he was just done with it. But what actually pulled him in was the idea that he would have like 40 hours of TV screen time to tell his stories. So he brought in Eric Blackney, a Hollywood showrunner, to help him with the story and the script. And they immediately realized that this whole story is just way too violent to be shown on TV. Now, the second thing that they did was they brought in Brendan McCarthy, who worked on the Canadian CGI TV show called Reboot. And they basically asked him, could you use this CGI to replace backgrounds on a Mad Max TV show? And he's like, yeah, we can, but why make a Mad Max TV show? Let's make a Mad Max movie. So Brendan gave George Miller this rudimentary idea for a new Mad Max thing, which was about Max delivering this package full of, let's call it DNA, to a warlord in a tower who tried to breed this one healthy girl that he had to restart civilization. And he also gave him some concept art and stuff like that. And George was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Let's make a Mad Max movie instead of that TV show. And that's how Fury Road was born. But Fury Road was in development hell for a very long time, so they had a lot of downtime to create backstories for characters. And they created the backstory for Furiosa, which became its own thing. And they created the backstory for Max, which was, again, about Max building himself a new car 1 year before Fury Road. So it's still the same story, except now it was called The Wasteland, and it was supposed to become a video game. But since that game never came out, it became a novella, which became adapted into a movie script, and that became adapted into a show. That's where we're at now. So just to go all the way back, the story of The Wasteland, I think, is 1987, a TV show, 1996, a TV show, 2008 to 2010, a video game, a novella, a movie script, and a show. That's insane. I guess that's George Miller's longest Mad Max project in the making. I'm really excited for this thing. I'm really excited for a Mad Max show because Max's stories have always lent themselves to this type of storytelling format. Now, the only thing that I'm kind of worried about is that if people will actually care about The Wasteland being tied to Fury Road and Furiosa, because all those three things were supposed to be released at the same time, and that would work in its advantage back in the day. But the way it's played out is that we have those stories that are fragmented, and you really need to kind of do your own homework if you want to really connect them. Although you don't have to, because all those stories have always been somewhat standalone. But the initial idea behind them all is not as strong as it used to be. Let's put it that way. Now, I'd love to hear your opinion about something. Would you like to see George Miller continue the story of the Citadel, Green Place, and all those things that we're familiar with? Or maybe you'd like to see George just put Max in a completely new, different environment, just like he did with the original trilogy. I think I'm good with both, but I'd love to know what you think about this, all right? So that's about all about The Wasteland, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll keep working on some more lore videos, so stick around for those, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay shiny and chrome.